but how we embrace it and how we take responsibility to communicate with the consistency, the rapidity that it requires, shows how proactive we are and gets us back in charge. So let's share some thoughts. We have agreed that the paradigm needs to change. So what are some of the things that you think you'd like to begin to do to shift the paradigm a little bit after this retreat? The floor is open.
Thank you. It's a conversation. How do you go from here? That's what it's telling you. So you can build up your own personal narratives. Where do you go from here and how do you do it?
So let's look at a scenario. I mentioned earlier on, of course, it will not be appropriate to mention specific names. Terminal operator A, for some reason, unknown to you, without reference to Shippers Council, without clearance to the NSC, tweaked its charges, its tariffs. Whereas freight forwarder B, who had initiated a large import, let's say, of wet cargo from China a month prior, based on a prior tariff plan. Because once you've arrived. There comes around other typical problems like storage and all of the things that are associated with delays, which freight forwarders don't like, or shippers don't like, the shippers end. And then they find themselves in a stalemate. This had happened for over 3 weeks and gradually began to seep into the press because of the status or stature of the two entities. It began to make for news. And the ramification that by the time the product is distilled through pumps or wherever, rather than go for 500 naira, we're looking at 1,500 naira. And Shippers Council is caught in the middle. How would this team handle it?
It's a question put all of you.
Yes.
Now, let's hold on. Martin, I know you are senior staff. Put this scenario which happened with Shippers Council about 2 or 3 weeks ago. You were all there when they said One, what in One has increased charges. You were all there.
Okay.
You had it. Okay? Now, at that level, what is just a similar thing asking me, what would be your response level when you hear that type of thing? And suddenly, one of the freight forwarders came about that what Shippers Council, that just they're wasting time, they don't have any responsibility to do. You had it. It was on press. Now, he's asking you, at that level, what would be your response level? What would you do?
One way to look at it is, how have you been typically, till now, responding to those kinds of situations? And then what needs to change
From there.
Typically, when I remember during my time in governance, typically when a crisis like that happens, okay, all right, we need to go, let's put out something, let's send something to all of our maritime press, whatever. It's not our responsibility, this, just to at least circulate, at least let our voice be heard that we are in the mix. That's what we used to do back then. I don't know if that is also the experience. But so let's look at it from the way we have been doing it and then ask ourselves, can we do it much more strategically, differently, in a way and manner that we benefit more in terms of our name, in terms of our reputation, in terms of the brand? I didn't want to mention names.
No,
I have to respect for this.
You know, in that respect, like the issue or ground we are trying to discuss.
Yes.
Now, first and foremost, I think when it happened, the head of PR first looked at the story and saw that even Shippers Council gave that approval in 2021. In 2021. And the mischief maker in 2025, from nowhere, came and said, how can they be giving improving rate charges by this year? When the economy is bad, the cargo is not coming in, there are a lot of international this thing, and so why should they do that type of thing? Without knowing that this approval was secured in 2021 and met all parameters on ground. So the head of PR said, do I need to respond this? She now had to go to the regulatory, went Zuma, went to the Met, and saw that the man was not on ground. The person who was blowing the trumpet was not on ground. Okay? And then, to place them, they had to still go into the media world and told them, look at the time we gave the approval, and they met all the metrics to get the approval.
Okay.
And this is a process.
So my question, using this scenario, is to then make the point I made earlier on. You can't afford to sleep. Look, in every space, there are good actors and there are bad actors. As communicators, we are the ones playing in this space. We cannot afford to be logical in terms of our approach, thinking that every other player is logical. No. Being paranoid must form part of how you operate. And there are so many scenarios like this. So, a clear case of a bad actor. But who is taking the hit? Who takes the hit for it? It's your brand that takes the hit for it. That's the issue. It's your brand that takes the hit for it. So what that kind of scenario is telling you is that prepare for more. Prepare for more. We don't even know whether somebody has already posted it as we sit here. We don't even know whether someone has already posted something that then causes us a world of pain. So being intentional in terms of space occupation before they get there has got to be part of the strategy. It's eternal vigilance in today's world where anybody can easily claim that they are a journalist. You have to simulate their role. You have to have people on your team playing that devil's advocate. What if has got to be the question that you ask consistently, tirelessly. What if? That's what we used to do back then. I'll just say, what if they kidnap 6 people and 3 of them are Chinese? This is a year where we are applying to join the IMO and all of that. And what if? And people, in fact, who used to call me crazy back then. Why are you crazy? I said, but that's the nature of the business. That's the way that we are in.
Anticipation.
We must be proactive. And being proactive is simply being strategic. That before the enemy gets there, I'd already gotten there and I have a playbook for it. So I'm not just reacting, but I'm dealing responsibly with the situation. So what that is telling us is that our channels of engagement with our various stakeholders must be very intense, must be very vibrant, must be very consistent, so that in some ways we get to know things. It doesn't mean that you will not concede goals. You can win a match and still concede goals. There will be some things that will slip through the cracks. But I'm just saying, please, being paranoid has got to be part of how you do business. That's the newsroom mentality. Dealing with breaking news. How do you think these CNN and the rest get to the place where the news is breaking? Because they too, they anticipate. What if something happens here? What if a volcano? If you go to CNN now, they'll tell you they have a playbook for dealing with volcanoes. They have a playbook for dealing with various kinds of accidents should they happen. They have a playbook for coverage or being where in a place like America there's what you call gun violence. That's why they can bring those news. They always seem to be on top of their game. There's a playbook for it. It's so intentional. And we're saying that has got to be the mentality and the approach. You want to say something, please? Okay. That's got to be the mentality and the approach. It means that, my dear friends, we've got to encourage ourselves a little bit more to lift off beyond our role as public servants. That's just where I'm going to. Otherwise, we'll constantly be in firefighting mode, even when we are innocent, all because of a few bad actors. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything. Someone wanted to say something
yes,
the other time.
You
still want to say something, please?
I wanted to say we have to be on the lookout. We shouldn't go sleeping. Our ears should be on the ground.
Absolutely. So let me ask this question. I really meant to ask this particular question of Shippers Council and then the PLT. About 2 months ago, NPA increased its rates by 15%. Of course, justifiably. They justified they are not having done that in over 30 years. And then, given that the port infrastructures are actually deteriorating and there's a need for that. But what was the most dominant outcry in the media? It was the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. They dominated the space. And it was really giving NPA a lot of heat. Because the argument was very simple. What you have just done, NPA, is to make life more costly for Nigerians. And you see, that is a very simple story that sticks. You don't even need a specialist to craft that press release. You don't even need a press release for that. By increasing your rates, it means that everybody along that value chain will also increase. And who bears the cost? By the time you answer the generality of Nigerians, the common man pays for this. But in fairness to them, it was justifiable because they have to, the money has to come from somewhere. Otherwise, there will be no more ports if we continue at this rate. If the system collapses, what happens? The rates we are all complaining about spending more. We will still come back. We will still all have to spend that more. Only God knows under what circumstances. So I'm putting a question to Nigerian Shippers Council. What was your position in that development? Because one of the things I did as I was preparing for this paper, I was searching, looking for a statement from Shippers Council.
Yes, let me help you.
And there was radio silence.
Let me help you.
Okay. I'm going somewhere with the issue of silence, but yes.
You know how it happens. Now, you see, we have a problem in this country. The position of MPA is that I'm the landlord and in charge of the ports and nothing has changed. The position of the federal government in terms of trade facilitation, protecting the interests of the shipper and port economic regulation squarely is on Nigerian Shippers Council. Now, the federal government has told MPA severally that once it is issue of charges, Shippers Council must be taken, they must tell us what to do. Without considering that, without listening to Shippers Council, they went and raised the charges. Now, Shippers Council played safe. We don't want this interagency trouble. The next thing you will hear everywhere now, they have their money, they have their strength. They may even go to the presidency to malign everybody in Shippers Council. You know them. Yes. And you know everybody in that place now. Once you give money, the news changes. Shippers Council went on the ground and wrote them a letter that what you did, if you had passed through us,